Yo, what's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're doing well. Today we're going to be taking a look at this old enclosure I built several years ago for some woodland amphibians. These are northern gray cheeks, which are fairly common in some parts of Appalachia, but I am going to be moving them into something better. It's something I've already actually created a background for in a previous video, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I really like this one, so I left them in it for several years. It didn't do that great. There were some times where this enclosure did really well and grew out in the first year, and then most of the mosses and liverworts have gotten brown over time. I've replaced some, and most of the ferns have died, and now it's really kind of I don't know really how you'd say it. It's just not in great shape. And I also want to give the animals a little bit more space. I notice at nighttime that they like to crawl and climb things, so I'm going to give them something a little bit bigger and a little bit taller with some more structure, and I think they'll be a little bit happier in there. I'm going to move a lot of the substrate over with them from this enclosure, obviously for bacteria and things like that, for beneficial bacteria, but I think they'll like it. So it should be a short video today, but I think you all will like it, and it should be fun to plant and put some moss and design it. So let's get into it. And here she is, what was supposed to be a temporary enclosure, and it looks like someone needs to take a weed whacker to this or something, because it's just not good. I mean, yeah, no, look at it. I mean, it's a cool background, but there's one of them is out, and you can actually see the background, which is not good either. The plusculite stuff, but anyhow, not great at all. So let's start to get the animals out and start throwing some of the moss away. Those are really the next steps to get rid of whatever I'm not going to use, get the animals out safely, put them in a temporary, and then save the substrate. Hey, so time out. I'm sitting here working on the video here, and I noticed that one of these filters isn't working right. And the only reason I know that is because when you work in this little room for so long, I'm like, shouldn't there be more water splashing and stuff like that? Well, it turns out the filter was completely clogged from the inside, where the little let's call it a turbine is, but where the little motor is, there was a dead worm in there somehow, and all kinds of weird stuff got sucked through. So I spent the last 45 minutes cleaning out the filter, and thank God we are back to running water in the red salamander enclosure, so the northern red one. So all good. You cannot leave that and have stagnant water in there, and so it's critical. I'm really lucky I heard or noticed it, I guess, when I did, but anyhow, a little bit of a diversion. Back to your regularly scheduled programming. So I've gone ahead and I've transferred all the old clay balls, which were being used as the false bottom. I've also transferred all the substrate, and I've used a new mesh screen to hold everything, separate everything. And I've taken a little bit of the moss from the old enclosure and kind of plugged it into places where I kind of saw it growing. I've also made a little warren of tunnels down there with rock underground, because these are fairly fossorial species. And I'm also OCD. I don't know if you can tell, but something oddly satisfying about me cleaning things up and moving things out. Just getting rid of the old enclosure and making sure everything's nice and tidy. And then we are going to make it rain with some leaf litter here. These leaves are mainly oak and some other stuff, and it's been sitting out forever. So not really worried about too much. Now I'm going to inoculate this with some springtails, even though there's already springtails and the substrate already has a bunch of stuff in it. I'm still going to put some more springtails. I always do this. And these are temperate springtails. They're pretty hard to see, but you can see them right there in the middle and on the bottom. But they're just tiny. Sometimes I end up with bigger springtails, which I think somehow just get in there from my house, which is kind of crazy. But anyhow, nonetheless, reintroduce some more. And then this is something I never showed. This is kind of cool. This is a white worm culture. and I am going to put some of these into this tank to basically seed it with white worms. Sometimes I do this and I just never really show it. This is kind of a close-up and not a great shot. It just kind of gets blurry, but here's a better one right here. Kind of gross, they're white worms, but salamanders will eat this stuff, and if they get in here, they're beneficial. They'll kind of move through the substrate. They can obviously be a different source of food for the animal as well. And here's some of the plants I'm going to be putting in. Obviously a lot more leaf litter at this point because I made it rain big time, and added a little more small plants in there. And we are just getting ready to do some more planting here. Misting, planting, and you'll notice that I am using a lot of these little ferns I found on rocks out near my property in West Virginia. I've had these ferns for about, I'm not even exaggerating, almost a year. And I've been growing them in kind of in a low light environment near a window, but not a ton of sunlight there. And I'm not going to overly plant this because I want to see, I'm kind of doing an experiment. I kind of want to see how this thing turns out without me putting a bunch of lush plants in, and see if these things can take off in this kind of similar light environment. One thing I'm not showing here also is that I've covered most of the top with plastic, so there's still a decent amount of airflow that could come in, but as you can see, it's got these little ferns everywhere and these little sprouts, and I'm hoping they all take off, which would be really, really cool. I really want to see if this works. Anyhow, this is something different. This is another type of feeder I use, which are bean beetles. I get these on occasion, and I'm going to also put a bunch in here. Now, they won't really be seeded because they eat beans, as you can see, but I've put them in here, and you can see they're really nutritious little snacks for amphibians, and so I've put them in, and hopefully the salamanders, when they get in, can hunt and catch some of these, but I wanted some food to already be in here for the animals. I don't want to go back in and mess with them anytime soon. And so I think it's time to start putting the salamanders in. It's hard to tell, but one of them actually crawled in this cork hollow here. You can kind of see his eye glinting. There he is. And so I'm going to put this in, and then I'm going to cover it up with clumps of this stuff, like some more moss and some fern, and kind of have it buried a little bit, but obviously open on the end so it can get in and out. Again, these things live underground most of the time, so I typically only see them at night. I was pretty shocked I saw the other one just before. And so what we're going to do is release them in here, but I think it gives them a lot of microhabitats, some areas that can get drier. They seem to love to climb, even though they're fairly fossorial. So we're going to get these guys in. As you can see, they're beautiful animals. I've had them for, I guess, 23, 24, maybe 2.5 years, something like that now. They're very closely related to my red-legged salamanders. They're almost the exact same animal, except these don't have red legs. Let's get all of these in. Got 2 more to go here. And they are pretty fat. They've gotten pretty big over the last couple of years. Definitely doubled in size. They've done really well. I've been very lucky. I guess I've certainly always tried to dial in my husbandry, but I think I've definitely, these animals can be pretty hardy as long as you meet some basic requirements for them. But yeah, hopefully they'll do okay in here. Hopefully I don't come down and find some crazy problem in a week. But I'm using the same substrate. There are some new plants, but I'm not too concerned about that. The substrate's really what's most important. The plants have been growing in a very sterile environment for a long time, and so I feel fairly confident that they are going to do very well. And let's see if we can feed some of these. Always try to see if they'll eat, if I can even find them as soon as I put them in. And again, I'm going to let this thing grow out. I want to see how it does. versus just make it look like it's been growing for 5 years like I do sometimes. Let's see, you get these little waxworms and there he goes, just munching it down. So that's a good sign, not too stressed. But I really think they're going to enjoy climbing in here. And I think, like I said, they can get dry if they want. They can get more moist where there's some more, damper areas in here. And they're just super cool animals. They're fossorial. It's funny, I actually took a really long time to go through the substrate just to make sure there weren't like little babies in here, because I hardly ever go in and disturb these things when I am, when I go in other than feeding them. So I actually just missed a couple baby cave salamanders recently. I thought all the eggs were duds, but apparently not. So, you never know, but I didn't see anything. So I think it's just the 4 that I have. But really great animals. I mean, just look how beautiful they are. I mean, it's just a really, really cool animal. Again, I've had some really good success with them so far, and look forward to keeping them and seeing how they develop over time. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this, and I will include a link to the original background build in the description so you can see how I actually made this background. But I think it looks really cool. I think over time I want to see how it grows in. I can always put some other moss and things like that in there. I've got some really interesting things planned. I've got 2 or 3 open enclosures right now, so I'm thinking of some pretty cool stuff. And there's also some bigger things afoot. I'm not going to jinx it and start talking about it now, but would be very, very cool projects to share at some point in the future once they're a little more solidified. But I hope you enjoyed this. Please subscribe, like, comment, whatever. Again, I'm sorry I was on a hiatus, but I have a toddler and I hurt myself, so it happens. But thank you for all of the support and look forward to more content.